So we have yet another edition of European things that confuse Americans, and in this one we are going to be focusing entirely on Spain. Now Spain holds a special place in my heart because it was actually my own introduction to the European lifestyle and the European quality of life, albeit very briefly. But if you don't know the story, basically in 2023 my girlfriend got an internship in Spain. So she moved from the Netherlands to Spain, and she had no family members or friends out there, so she was completely alone, and she was really struggling to adjust at first. So I flew out there, and I basically helped her get settled in, so on and so forth. And although it was very special meeting her for the first time, because we were long distance up to that point, although that was very special, something that really caught me off guard at the time was just how nice Valencia actually was. Now, I don't know what I was expecting. I guess I was kind of expecting it to be inferior to the US because at that point in time, I was still indoctrinated. I was still conditioned to believe that the US was the best. But at the end of those 2 weeks, I returned back to the US, to LA in particular, with the full understanding that the US was not only not the best country out there, but with the realization that it probably wasn't even in the top 10 or top 20, maybe even top 50. However many countries there are in the EU, that's how many countries are above the US. I drew a very big conclusion from a very short stay. That is how much of an impression Valencia, Spain made on me. That said, for as cool as it is to be there, it also comes with an adjustment period. If you're coming from the US to Spain, there are major cultural differences that do take time to get used to, and that adjustment period is generally conducive to the phenomenon known as culture shock. So in this video, I will be watching videos of other Americans experiencing culture shock in Spain. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this first video.
Okay, I'm an American living in Spain, and I've been here for 3 years. And I just have to make this video because this is just a difference between living in the United States and living in Spain that I don't think I will ever get over. It is 11:15 at night. I am a 35-year-old woman, and I feel completely safe walking around by myself.
So this right here was actually one of my first major culture shocks that I experienced being in Valencia, Spain. So again, I went there to meet my girlfriend, and we met at this hotel. It was the Senator Park Central Hotel in Valencia, Spain. If you're from Valencia or if you've been to Valencia, you might know what I'm talking about. We met at that hotel, but by the time I got there, it was already after dark. In fact, I think by the time I got to the hotel and checked into the room, it was after midnight. So I texted my girlfriend the location that I was at, and she started making her way over to the hotel. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, she either walked or rode her bike from her apartment. I'm pretty sure she rode the bike that the company had given her for the internship. And I remember I felt very uneasy about that because, I mean, you have this not only woman, but this woman who's very short, very physically unimposing in nature, walking or cycling alone in the dark. In the US, that's a non-starter. You do not do that, especially in a place like Los Angeles. You do not do that under any circumstances if you can avoid it. But she didn't really seem to be fazed by it. So I didn't want to seem like I was possessive or controlling because this was our first time meeting in person. I wanted to make a good impression, so to speak. So I didn't really say anything about it. But the next night, when we got a chance to actually go out together at night, I understood why she seemed so at ease about it. It was because it was actually safe. There were other people out, and generally you didn't see a whole lot of nefarious activities going on. Not to say that those things don't happen, but you just don't see them walking around Valencia. So ever since then, my standard in terms of safety changed drastically.
Obviously, I'm taking safety measures. I don't have my headphones on. I'm walking in a big pedestrian area. I'm walking in an area that's lit. I'm aware of my surroundings. You would never catch me walking in the United States alone at 11:15 at night. And I'm from Kansas, and that's actually pretty relatively safe. But living here in Spain, it is truly just like a whole nother level. And the reason why I think it is so different is because there are people all over the place. The city that we live in is set up where all the lights are very bright.
That's a big one right there. There are a lot more street lights for pedestrians and cyclists, not just in Spain, but everywhere I've been in Europe. But we're talking about Spain here. So in Valencia particularly, I don't know about other parts of Spain, but in Valencia, it's so well lit that there aren't really any shadows that people can hide in, so to speak. And yes, that does happen. People hide in the shadows and wait for people like her or people like my girlfriend to walk by, and that's when they abduct them and do whatever they do after that. I'll let you kind of fill in the gaps in your own imagination, or really, you don't even have to imagine it because it happens. But I feel like that's something that Valencia did a really, really good job of, is ensuring that every street is very well lit. And to her point about there being people all over the place, that's what happens when you have a human scale city. People actually walk, people actually bike, and having more people around makes a place feel much safer. In the US, you can even be in a safe neighborhood, but there are so many shadows and dark spots and corners that people can hide in. And there's no one else around, that even as a grown man who's fully capable of handling myself, if that situation were to occur, I still felt very uneasy walking alone at night myself in the US. So I can only imagine how my girlfriend would have felt.
All the streets are open and they're not dark, and there's light everywhere, which makes you feel safer when you can see your surroundings. It's just another reason why I feel like I will truly never leave Spain, given I don't do this often. But when I do, I love that I can.
Honestly, if you're from Spain, I want you to take a moment to just internally appreciate the fact that you can do what she's doing, especially if you're a woman, or maybe if you have daughters or nieces, or if you have a girlfriend, a wife, so on and so forth. Just allow yourself to experience gratitude for the fact that a woman can walk alone at night like this and be unbothered. It's not to say nothing ever happens, because things happen everywhere. But at the very least, the likelihood of something happening is much lower. And that's not only statistically true, but it's also true in terms of the actual inner atmosphere that creates walking alone at night. On to the next post. So this one right here, by the way, just a full disclaimer, this one's muted because she just uses copyrighted music. And honestly, the music's kind of annoying. So to spare you the annoyance, I just muted it. So I guess that's PDA. Honestly, I don't recall seeing a whole lot of PDA when I was in Spain. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention because, I mean, what was the reason to? I had my girlfriend with me, and maybe we were the ones who were doing the PDA, but I don't recall seeing a whole lot of that, but I can see how that would be a prominent part of the culture out there. And it could also depend on where in Spain you are. It just keeps going. That's a big thing, especially in Spain, really Europe as a whole, but I feel like in Spain particularly, because I noticed Spanish people do not like to rush at all. They don't like to rush. They like to take their time, especially when they're going out to eat. And I noticed that Spanish restaurants seem to stay open much later because people not only like to eat later, which is something I resonate with very deeply, by the way, but also because when they do go out to eat, they like to stay for longer because they don't have to worry about turn times for the servers in order for the servers to be able to make a livable wage. But I digress. Definitely a much more relaxing atmosphere. You know what? I didn't really notice that myself in terms of staring. I saw that more in Switzerland. I remember there was this guy who was eyeing me down. I was like, what is this guy on? Why is he looking at me like that? But There is a picture, I'll put it on the screen right now, where my girlfriend took a picture of me cycling in Valencia, and there's this guy just staring directly into my soul for some reason. So maybe people were staring and I just didn't notice, but I didn't really find that to be that big of an issue. But if you're from Spain, let me know if that is a cultural norm and I'm just not very attentive, because I don't know, I don't recall seeing a whole lot of that. But on to the next post.
One of the biggest culture shocks for me was just how spontaneous people are in Spain and Spanish people. I feel like in the US, it's always, okay, I know exactly what I'm doing 2 weekends from now. I know I have a brunch on Saturday and a movie on Sunday. Honestly, this caused a lot of problems with my boyfriend and I at first.
So I think this might be more individual specific, but instead of comparing Americans to Spaniards in this regard, I'm actually going to compare Dutch people to Spaniards in this regard, because Dutch people are known for planning things multiple weeks in advance, whereas evidently Spaniards are known for doing the exact opposite, which I think actually aligns more with how I operate in my day-to-day life. I don't plan things multiple weeks in advance. I kind of just take life day by day, and that seems like the Spanish way of doing things. So honestly, I feel like I do share a lot of cultural eccentricities or idiosyncrasies with Spaniards. Because again, we have the eating very late thing, that's something I'm notorious for, and just generally living life day by day, moment by moment, to the best of my ability.
First, because it would be Wednesday and I'd be like, okay, like, what do you want to do this weekend? And he would just tell me, like, I don't know, I haven't talked to my friends, I'll let you know on Friday when we make a plan. And I'm over there stressing, I'm like, on Friday, I need to know today. I'm just cracking up because I've adjusted so much to this more spontaneous lifestyle. Like,
I think actually, now that I think about it, I might be more of the exception rather than the rule in this regard, because I'm self-employed, and because I'm self-employed, I create my own schedule. So I have the freedom to be more spontaneous, whereas most Americans who work traditional 9-to-5s, they work so many more hours that they don't have the luxury of being able to be spontaneous. So it's not that they don't want to be spontaneous, they literally can't because of working culture over there. Whereas in Spain, working culture seems to favor employees much more, not necessarily at the expense of the employers, but it does seem to favor quality of life a lot more, and Spaniards just seem to have a lot more freedom with the, I think it's called siesta, the break and the rest period in the middle of the day, something like that. Let me know if that's the right word for it, because that's just the word that's popping up in my head. But the siesta, I think that's a perfect example of Spanish culture. That's the perfect embodiment and representation of Spanish culture. And I think that that's something that Americans could truly benefit from, is just learning to relax and take a break. But first, you have to have policies that enable that.
like, it's 9:47. My friend just texted me, hey, do you want to go get a drink at 11 p.m.? So here I am getting ready at 10 p.m. to just go get a drink at 11 p.m. The Spanish life, the Spanish people are so spontaneous. And it doesn't matter what time of day it is or when, it's just, hey, let's go get a drink. Let's go do something. And I absolutely love it. It was a bit shocking at first, but it's definitely something that I love and something that I will keep doing for the rest of my life. So go Spanish spontaneity.
Again, I fully wholeheartedly agree with that. I think that Americans could use a lot more spontaneous siesta energy in their lives, because Americans are stressed. That's not to say that Spanish people are never stressed, especially when, what's it called? El Clasico, I think? You didn't know I knew about that, did you? But when El Clasico happens, I'm sure that a lot of people get really stressed out, or any other major football matches. But Americans could definitely benefit from absorbing some of that relaxed energy that you see in Valencia.